forewarned, I have had a liquid addition to my lunch. So it's been a pretty good day. Woke up, played some video games with my friends, talked to another friend, have many friends. Ninja News Japan is all about friends. That's good stuff. The mayor of Ninja News Japan, as you have listened to the last episode, I'm sure, is a constant obsession of mine because her incredibly unreasonable burden she's placed upon the city which she's the mayor has created a whole series of questions that I just want the answers to. Now, I also subscribe to a website called Bengoshi. That is lawyer.com in Japanese. So it's a really good site because what people do is they send questions to bengoshi.com and then a real lawyer answers those questions. So I was very excited when someone asked a question about the mayor of Ninja News Japan, the mayor who decided that she should have meetings with a subordinate who was married at love hotels. And really the question is like, how is this acceptable? Is it a crime? Because technically they're just going to a hotel. So she claims, I went to a love hotel, but I didn't have sex. A lawyer's view on this and how it would hold up in court is the question we've been asking. It's the question I've been asking since this whole case started, because if you actually had to prove this, okay, this is a public employee who's voted in. Therefore, if they are voted in again, based on the fact that people know that they have had meetings, I struggle to not say intimate relationships, meetings at a love hotel, is that okay? Now, a public employee, they've been voted in. If they've been voted in with everyone knowing this, then a tacit approval of having meetings at love hotels. But legally speaking, how does this hold up in court? That's the question that's being asked. A love hotel is defined as having a distinct purpose. So that is really the first point against you, because there are other locations you could have that would have just as much privacy as a love hotel. A love hotel is designed for people to meet and spend a certain amount of time for human intimate relations. That is the purpose of the hotel. There are business hotels where they're very small rooms. When I had COVID, I actually had to stay in one, but it's a hotel you stay in. It's got a bed, a TV, and basically nothing else. And it's really cheap. You could have one of those. You could actually, again, being the mayor of a city, probably have a little bit of money. You could get a slightly better hotel, a regular hotel, and just book that. Probably for not much more or different amount of money. The claim, I would say, is that a love hotel offers a certain level of convenience. You can check in at any time. You can check out at any time. And that other hotels don't offer that. But that does not seem to be a defense in this case. Legally speaking, again, because we're talking about evidence, and there's not such real evidence that anything actually happened unless they took a video or something. But there is strong indication considering alternative options. So a business hotel, city hotels, private rooms, residences. I mean, there's a bunch of other places you could go other than a love hotel, which is why it calls into question, why did you choose a love hotel to go to? So in court, you would need to prove, why did you choose a love hotel over other options, over other private venues that were available? You could go to a karaoke bar, a karaoke box, and then you don't have to necessarily sing, but it is a private place. No one would see you, and it's not intended. The intended purpose of going to a karaoke place is to not have intimate human relations. It's to sing songs. But you have just as much privacy as a love hotel, and yet it doesn't have the same sort of implications. So that's the bit that maybe is going to cause you the most trouble should this actually go to court. To use the other excuse, you would need evidence to prove that you chose a love hotel for a specific reason, which the mayor of Ninja News Japan has not done. The evidence in this case is considered an unreasonable excuse. So the fact that they chose a love hotel over another venue, considering their position and the power relationship they're involved, means that they shouldn't have chosen a love hotel because there were other better options that were available to them. So going to a love hotel didn't offer a reasonable excuse. There was an actual case of a man, he was accused of infidelity. And he said he had gotten drunk after an insurance meeting. And so he and the insurance adjuster, who just happened to be an attractive young woman that he was attracted to, they went to a love hotel. And he said it was just to sleep, just to relax, just like, before he went home, that kind of thing. They were not there to have intimate relations. Now, it is possible to stay at a business hotel for the exact same purpose and result as if you're just sleeping off being drunk for a couple hours. It is possible that they could have gotten separate rooms. So the fact that they didn't choose those other options, that they chose to go to a love hotel together into a single room, implies that they made a conscious choice to go to this thing where a venue where a specific thing is supposed to happen. Love hotels. The only other point that comes into this case of where love hotels actually become an issue is that there is a thing called a short stay and a long stay. That, according to the lawyer, has no implication because you could go for a short stay and just bang one out really quick because some people last longer than others. Others don't need as much time to get sort of the work done. Some people are maybe more efficient. I'm not saying that the quality is connected to time, but in this case, they're saying like, yeah, you can get just as much done in a couple hours as you could in a long stay, which would be all day. If you ever do come to Japan and you want to go to a love hotel, you'll see two prices. One is short stay. And I don't remember how long that is. It's like 1, maybe 2 hours. And then the other is long stay, where there's an implication of it's about like 5, 6, 7 hours where you're spending their time. I'm not going to suggest what you do over that course of time interlude wise, but just saying that if you're going to come to Japan, you want some options, you want some availability, you want some ideas. Ninja News Japan, we're here to help. In Japan, carrying a knife is illegal. So I used to carry a Swiss Army knife with me everywhere I went. And then I read a story about a British man who got arrested. He basically went to a police box and he said, I'm looking for directions. And then the police officer said, are you carrying a knife? Knowing that many foreigners just sort of carry knives. And he said, yes, I do. Here's my Swiss Army knife. And then he got arrested. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you had not been cooperative, you actually probably would have got away with the crime. And that's the thing that bothered me. So I was like, I'm not carrying a knife. So I stopped carrying a knife, even though I carried, it wasn't necessarily the knife part, it was the screwdriver part kind of came into play more often in my life when I was actually using the Swiss Army knife. But I stopped carrying one altogether because of that story that I read. You can carry a knife in Japan if it relates to your job or if you're carrying it to a specific purpose. So the rule is, so let's say I'm going to go fishing. It is acceptable for me to carry a fish gutting knife with me to go fishing and then to go home again. But I have to be able to prove that I am going fishing right now, that I am not carrying a knife for no reason. Let's say I'm a chef and carrying knives are part of my job and I'm carrying knives to my job. That is acceptable because I should be able to prove that I'm going to work right now. Any other instance of carrying a knife is unacceptable. A 47-year-old man was carrying 3 knives with him. He had one in each hand when he was accosted by the police and one in his mouth. So there have been a lot of jokes about the One Piece character. I think it's Zoro, and he carries 3 swords, one in each hand and one in his mouth. And he's capable of swinging his head around with enough velocity to actually do damage with the one in his mouth, which is incredibly unrealistic, but that's a cartoon. That's fine. But this guy carrying 2 knives in his hands and one in his mouth, that causes an issue because it basically creates a certain amount of tension. These come down to social acceptability. And again, these are rules that would be very different from probably if you were an American listener or a UK listener. These are different rules than in your country. In Canada, certainly where I grew up, carrying a Swiss Army knife would not even have been like an issue or a question. The cops wouldn't have seen it as anything at all. In Japan, you can get arrested for that. So that's just something to keep in mind should you visit Japan in the future. This guy, he was absolutely pushing the boundaries. So when he was met by the police, he had a knife in each hand and one in his mouth. And he said to the police, I'm on my way to pick vegetables from my friend's house. That throws into a question, why do you need 3 knives to pick vegetables? That would sort of be the first instance. If I was the detective in this case, trying to solve the case of why this man has 3 knives with him, and he says it's to get vegetables, do you need all 3 knives? Are all 3 knives necessary? Very important question. The same website, bengoshi.com, the similar question was asked. It was like, is carrying 3 knives worse than carrying 1 knife? And again, opens a whole flood of actually like reasoning that would actually happen in court should this actually come to issue. So a knife over 6 centimeters is considered a blade. And it's the firearm and blades law, control law in Japan. So after the samurai were kind of like not a thing anymore, they made a rule that you're essentially not allowed to carry swords. And then it became swords and firearms. So you actually see references to the swords and firearms control laws, which is a very interesting thing because, again, other countries just don't have that. Carrying more than 1 knife at a time is considered an offense. So that's it. Just having 2 knives unless you can, again, justify why you have two knives, is considered an offense in Japan. So not even if so if I have two fish gutting knives, that seems excessive and unnecessary, and therefore I don't need to carry both knives because it's one purpose. I'm going to be gutting fish. So I should not have two fish gutting knives on me at the same time. So that is now a crime. You can carry knives for employment or other legitimate reasons. The way it is carried is also a factor. So if I was a chef and I carry more than one knife with me and I'm on my way to my restaurant, they would need to be wrapped up and tied up in sort of a package. I think you've seen in the movies when they unroll a series of knives or torture devices and it's in sort of a nice leather case and it's got a little tie on it. Something like that would show that I was not carrying the knife for an ulterior purpose. I wasn't able to just pull it out. Accessibility becomes the second issue. So how you're carrying it is number one. So if I have it in a bag, wrapped up in my backpack and I can't access it easily, then it's very clear that I do not intend to use that knife on my way to work. I don't intend to stab anyone. But if I have one in each hand, it's going to be very easy for me to stab everyone who walks past me on either side. And then I have one in my mouth should I trip and then stab someone as I fall forward. I'm just a stabbing machine. So the accessibility is an issue. And the fact that he had one in each hand has actually made that criminal, because he's not going to be able to, number one, prove why he has three knives. And then the accessibility factor means that actually there is an unspoken intent as to why he has the knives available to him out in the open and ready to go. So the lawyer in this case said having one in his mouth and both hands is not socially acceptable. And actually, if this went to court, it could be up to 2 years in prison and a 300,000 yen fine. In Japan, police are allowed to stop anyone. So America had a big issue with stop and frisk. Now in Japan, they're not allowed to frisk you, but they are allowed to ask you questions. So they can stop and ask you for identification. They can ask you for employment. They can ask you where you're going and what you're doing. That is perfectly legal in Japan. People come from other countries. Again, I'm primarily thinking of Americans and they think, well, I don't have to tell you anything. That's true maybe in America, but in Japan, that is absolutely not true. You have to be able to justify where you're going at any point. In my 25 years in Japan, have never been stopped. Now, I don't know if that's because of my size or my incredibly pleasant demeanor or whatever, but the cops have never picked me for stop and search. They've never searched me. I have friends who've had their bicycles checked. So another thing, you have to register your bicycle in Japan, and they can actually stop you and check the registration of your bicycle. That is also perfectly legal. So these are things that people who are not familiar with Japanese laws have to get used to, because you have to know what is acceptable in Japan so that you can, interact with the police appropriately. One of the things that people don't know is that I have to carry my foreign residence card if you become a resident of Japan. You carry your foreign residence card with you at all times, which I sometimes forget to do when I go and walk Dave. But if a cop stops me and says, do you have your card? And I say no, I could be arrested for that alone. Now, a reasonable police officer would be like, let's go to your house and get your card and you can show me and we'll be okay. But cops are not always reasonable. Maybe they're in a bad mood. Maybe they don't like foreigners. Who knows? That's actually the alternative issue. But that would still be 100% your fault because you are legally supposed to have your foreign residence cards with you at all times. He's allowed to ask me to see that, but he's not allowed to touch it. And that's a rule that cops don't tend to know. So there is a question of you show him the card and he goes to take it from you. You're actually not supposed to let him take it. But since cops don't generally know that that's not okay, then they get really upset that you're not letting them take it and look at it more closely, that kind of thing. So there's a whole other set of issues there. But issues have come up in the past of people saying they're being targeted. It's racism, that stuff. The cops are allowed to stop anyone, Japanese, foreign, whatever. They're not supposed to be racist about it, but let's face it that human inclinations would lead you to sort of stop and ask certain groups over others more often than not. I think that's a pretty fair statement to make. Lots of foreigners take offense to this. And in Kobe, a 56-year-old British man was looking at a patrol car. Now, the policeman was in the patrol car and he noticed this guy staring in the car, and then he turned around and walked away when the policeman looked back at him. So he's like, well, that's vaguely suspicious. So he got out of his patrol car and he followed the man and he started asking him questions. Now, the man answered a couple questions, and then he got annoyed and he went into a convenience store and he went into the toilet and he stayed in the toilet for an extended period. And this was in the hopes, I assume, that the cop would go away. Now, cops honestly have nothing else to do but actually, bear down and follow people on stuff. So that's what he did. He just waited for the guy to come out. The guy came out, they continued their conversation. He continued his questioning and he got very upset. Once he got worked up, we have sort of a fuzzy amount of details, but we know one thing. We know that the British man bit the police officer's thumb. So a question I have you ever been angry enough at someone that you actually bit their thumb? So should you have an answer to that, please email chunkmybeefchest@gmail.com or send a message to speakpipe.com/chunkmybeefchest. I would like to hear about your anger leading to thumb biting fury incident, if you have one. If you don't, I understand. Have you ever been that angry, though, that you wanted to bite someone's thumb? I would also like to hear about that. When he was arrested, because you're not allowed to bite police officers on any part of their body. You're not allowed to bite police officers on any part of their body, as it leads to what they call obstruction of business, obstruction of police duties, because by biting someone, you are obstructing them from doing their job. But I thought, if I just read the statement that the British man made, it just wouldn't have the same impact. So I had a certain British friend of mine, Mr. Warmhands. He, quite kindly, being British, decided to do multiple versions for me in a British accent so we can get the full perfect soundbite of the British man, his statement when he was actually arrested.
The policeman wouldn't leave me alone. He was bad.
Now, we don't know where this man was from. We don't know what kind of accent he has. So I actually asked Mr. Warmhands to go ahead and just give me a couple of versions, and he very kindly did. So that was our sort of more proper English gentleman style. Now, here's a more common version.
The Bobby wouldn't let me be. He was mugging me off.
Yeah, there you go. So if you ever want some British flavor, I'm trying to make Ninja News Japan a better podcast for you to listen to, so I want to bring more elements into it. I would love contributions. And this is one of the ways I want to do it, is bring people in, give me your take on stuff. I can argue with you or not. Who knows? Maybe I agree. Doubtful, because I think the more entertaining position is for me to play devil's advocate in every situation. We don't know if this man's been arrested. We don't know how far this is going to go. I'm pretty sure if you bite a police officer, you're going to get in trouble. I would bet, if I was going to guess, that he would be held for the 23 days and then deported, but he would have to pay his own way back. So he's part-time job already. So he's not exactly in great financial straits. So he's going to be stuck. They'll arrest him and hold him, but they won't put him in jail. They won't prosecute him, but he won't have any money. And they'll say, you got to go home, and they'll have to go home. I can see that absolutely being the case. You go to a laundromat at 3 a.m., you have made certain lifestyle choices. In my youth, I would have made similar ones. I wouldn't do that now because I wouldn't be awake at 3 a.m. because I'm an old man who does very old man things like drink at lunch, which is why this podcast has been probably very slurry, and I have not even reasoned it. Not slurry as in slurs, slurry as in unclear speech. But just the same, at 3 a.m. laundromat, a worker found a DVD, and on that DVD was a note, and that note said, "For healthy men, feel free to take this." The police then were called because leaving weird videos for people to pick up is not necessarily illegal, but it is strange. So it leads to a certain amount of suspicion. The police said this had indecent videos and photographs on the DVD within it. So that actually has a set of implications in itself. Indecent implies actually non-professional. So pornographic DVD, they would actually say it's a adult DVD, it's pornography, it's something like that. They would actually be very clear about what it is. They did not say that. They said indecent, which would actually imply that these are upskirt videos, non-consensual videos, pictures taken without people's consent. We don't have a lot of details, but it does seem like there were upskirt videos and things in that, which would imply that these were not staged, not consensual, and therefore another layer of illegal on top of them. Same night at a convenience store, there was another DVD found with the same sort of note. Now, if I was a detective, here's what I would do. I would get the security cameras, because there's going to be security cameras in the convenience store. There's going to be security cameras in the laundromat. And I would watch both of those security cameras and I would see, hey, is there the same guy in both? And if there are, maybe we should go have a conversation with that guy. Well, that shows that I'm a very good detective, because that's exactly what the actual detective did. He watched both security camera videos and then he went and found a 67-year-old business executive. He was an executive at a construction company, and he was arrested. And he made a statement when he was arrested. And since we had our voice actor extraordinaire, Mr. Warmhands, already doing voices, I asked him to do this voice too. So we got his statement as well.
I did not leave obscene DVDs in the stores.
Now, his statement was that I did not leave obscene DVDs in the stores. Now, that actually was a very interesting statement to me, because to me, it actually seems like maybe he doesn't consider it an obscene DVD. He considers it art. Because what one person considers pornography, another person might consider art. And art is a matter of taste. And pornography is a question of morality. But I think in reality, we could all agree that this was just non-consensual porn. A 31-year-old man was arrested for using AI to deepfake nudes of celebrities to sell. Now, this is important, because this is going to become more and more of an issue, but it's how do you protect the people? Now, in Japan, there has been deepfakes of high school girls, deepfakes of coworkers, and now deepfakes of celebrities. But celebrities have enough money and sort of clout to actually start suing people and getting people arrested. And that's going to set the precedent going forward, which make it easier for all those other people who had deepfakes made of them before the rules were in place. Because this is one of the problems with AI and new technology, is when the new technology arises, there is no rule in place for that to actually be prosecuted, because people don't know, is this okay? Because it's not a real video. It's AI created. Is that legal? Is it not legal? They have to make the laws. So he posted 14 videos online. Now, these were probably just samples, like showing the quality of his work, because he had a private website where you could join and pay a subscription fee and actually see the other videos he was making. Between December 2024 and May of 2025, he used 300 celebrities to make 520,000 deepfakes. And they think he made up to 11 million yen a members only site. Now, if you had joined the members only site, you could actually pay an additional fee and you could actually make requests. So I like this celebrity in this possession doing this thing. You could actually request that and pay extra and you would make it. And this guy was making a ton of money off it. 11 million yen over the course of a year is a really, really good salary. So I've said a couple of times, between 4 to 5 million yen is the average salary in Japan. So this guy in 1 year made 2 times the average salary, even a little more on top of that. Unfortunately, now they have celebrities willing to sue him, willing to get their lawyers involved. So this guy, I'm going to say, ultimately is screwed. The morning after pill has not been available in Japan. It was made available in 2011. Now, I did an episode on this, but it was years and years ago. So the background is there's a very strong abortion lobby of doctors in Japan. So doctors in Japan are like making a ton of money off providing abortions, so they don't want some sort of simple solution like the day after pill to take away their money. So what they did was they formed a coalition and they stopped it for years and years and years. But in 2011, they're like, this medicine's safe. It's actually safer than doing the surgery that you guys are making them pay for. So what they did was petition the government to make it so that you had to get a prescription from a doctor and actually get it from a doctor, so they could charge a crazy amount of money for you to get the day after pill, so that you could actually, so they could actually maintain the money they were actually already making. And this was one of the grosser ideas of doctors in Japan. So like my experience with doctors overall has been very positive. Like these are people who actually, despite what's wrong with you, want to make you better, want to make you healthy again, want to take care of you. But it sounds like these abortion doctors were in it for the money more than anything else, and they were perfectly willing to put women at risk because it would make them more money than actually giving them a pill that would be very easy and safe for them to take. Very recently, from this month, so this is only a couple days ago, from February, you can now buy the day after pill over the counter in Japan. It costs 7,480 yen, which is a lot of money, but not crazy. I mean, honestly, it's not crazy, but they still have to make it vaguely burdensome because it is Japan. It must be purchased in person. So you can't buy it online. You can't have someone go out. So like, let's say I have an incident with a woman. I can't go pick it up for her. She has to go herself. And it must be taken on site in the presence of a pharmacist. So I, as a woman, would have to take the pill in front of the pharmacist and show her that I swallowed. I guess open your mouth and go, something like that. And I was trying to think, like, why would you make it go that far? And it's to make sure they take it, yes. But I was like, why would you have to make them do that? And the only thing I could come up with is like, there is the very small possibility that I have a friend or a sister or someone else who's pregnant, and I find out they're pregnant. And so I get the day after pill and I basically try to get them to take it without them knowing. And then they have a miscarriage or whatever. And then that causes them issues, and essentially a roundabout way to murder a baby. But that is so convoluted. And again, the day after pill has been available in so many countries for so long. We haven't heard a lot of those stories, which makes me think it probably doesn't happen that often, which makes it's not an issue, which means there's this other issue. And I think, again, they're just trying to make it burdensome for women to get access to this very simple, very safe kind of contraceptive. And that's just one of those other things that's sort of different about Japan than every other country. And it all stems from the fact that these doctors 20 years ago really didn't want to lose any money. You may have heard of Yasukuni Shrine. I've talked about it a few times. Basically, anytime a politician visits Yasukuni Shrine, they create a certain amount of anger in Korea and China. And that's because Yasukuni Shrine is a shrine dedicated to Japanese people who've died in war. So it's their war. I don't want to say the word heroes, but people who are prominent in wars. But most of the wars with Japan involved were China, Korea, other surrounding countries. And let's just say they're not fans of how those wars kind of worked out. So there's a lot of animosity when a politician goes to visit this. So someone organized an official Pokemon event to happen at Yasukuni Shrine. China then immediately complains. And I think in this case, justifiably. I often talk about how the relationship between China and Japan is sort of more sound and fury than anything else. But realistically speaking, this one's pretty justified. Why are you having events at Yasukuni Shrine when Pokemon's supposed to be, the whole point is supposed to be like for everybody, bring people together, that kind of stuff. Pokemon, the company, immediately apologized. So what actually happened was privately prepared event for kids by a certified Pokemon card player was created. So basically, someone who's very high in the Pokemon community decided that they were going to organize an event for kids, and they plan to do it at Yasukuni Shrine. But because they're this high-level certified Pokemon player, they have access to Pokemon's official website. So they posted on their official website, come to Yasukuni Shrine, hey kids, we're going to have a Pokemon event. And then that represents Pokemon the company. It's very complicated, but it's because there are so many people actually involved. Pokemon goes, damn, we should have seen that one coming. We don't want to have events at Yasukuni Shrine because we want to sell stuff in China. We want to sell our stuff in Korea. So they immediately apologized. They said it was an event that should not have been held in the first place. The event was then immediately canceled. So last episode, I said I wanted to finish the next episode, which would be this episode, on an upbeat. And you would think canceling a Pokemon event is not ending on an upbeat, but we have a multinational corporation recognizing that something went wrong, immediately apologizing, and then canceling the event. I think that's good for everybody. So way to go, Pokemon Corporation. You don't suck. But I think we can all agree this is probably just porn. I think we can all agree that this was probably just illegal, non-consensual porn. That line was it's a good line. I can't do it.